Hey, good afternoon, folks. This is Bill Costanzo, Livestock Guardian Dog Program Specialist at the AgriLife Center in San Angelo. Sorry we're started a little bit late here. I was having some technical difficulties logging on today, but we're going to go ahead and get started with our Q&A session for December here this month. I do want to I'll make sure and thank the Sheep and Goat Predator Management Board, which provides funding for our program, and also Dr. Redden, who provides leadership for the program here in San Angelo. So with that, we've got quite a few questions today to get to, so I want to go ahead and get started. But if anybody does have questions, feel free to go ahead and post those in the chat, and we'll try to get those answered. Or if you need have some follow-up questions to my answers, feel free to go ahead and post those today too. So our first question comes from Jennifer Derrick. She says they're experienced Great Pyrenees breeders and owners. However, they're transitioning over to Anatolian Shepherds to stay with her hair sheep. They have a 9-month-old female who is a great protector and lives with the sheep. However, when they are outside, she tries to come up to us instead of staying with the sheep. Says that they've tried only petting her when in the sheep barn and running her away from us, but nothing else is working. They need another mate to pair with her, but don't want to put another with her while they're experiencing some bad behaviors from the dog. And they're looking for some ideas and advice needed. Says that they also pull their sheep into a barn at night, but are on pasture in the daytime. She stays in the barn, but she comes up to us when the sheep are on the pasture. So what I would say, Jennifer, is your initial inclination to not add another dog yet is correct. I wouldn't encourage you to get another dog involved until this female has kind of worked through her adolescent months. And she's just, 1 or 2 months probably into those teenage months, and that's going to last until probably 18 months of age, like I'm sure that you know. It's also good that you're only giving her positive reinforcement when she's with livestock. Those are both things, that I generally recommend to people. I would also recommend, maybe putting in some hot wire or an invisible fence system like Spot On Fence or Invisible Fence brand to help teach her that, she needs to stay in a specific area and not leave that area and come find you when she sees you outside. Both of those systems have pros and cons. The one nice thing about the Spot On system is it does have a built-in GPS tracker and a very easy phone app to be able to set that system up. That system would probably work really well for you since you're already bringing animals in at night and she's staying in the barn with the animals at night, because the current Spot On system does have a pretty short battery life of about 22 hours. We are working with the company, and they did tell me recently that they are took our recommendations, and they're coming out with a specific livestock guardian dog Spot On collar sometime in 2024. So check with us on our Facebook page, and I might even have a YouTube video once we get our hands on that thing. But it sounds like this dog might be a bit over socialized, which can easily happen on a smaller place, just with adults around or if there's kids around. So one question I had, is, are you feeding her with the sheep in the pasture, or are you feeding her in a different location, maybe by the barn? I would recommend feeding her with the sheep in the pasture if possible. And that would, hopefully encourage her to stay with the sheep. I think you're just going to have to keep working with her, and constantly redirecting her to stay with the sheep, whenever you're out there. Now, if you're in the same pasture, I don't think there's anything wrong with her coming over to check you out. That's probably a good thing, that if some, random animal or person is in your pasture, they should come over and do that kind of thing. So if you got any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help work with you a little bit more with that female dog of yours. Next question is from Betty Buckingham. She says before she found the A&M page, they were basing their training methods on another group that advised them to keep the puppies with them 24/7 until they're 24 months of age. She says while this made the dogs phenomenal pets, they needed an actual working dog. And yes, Betty, I know the page that you're talking about, and they recommend that method, which we definitely don't agree with, and a lot of other people that work with livestock guardian dogs don't agree with either. Betty says that they're trying to correct and get their pups bonded to livestock. One is a female Anatolian Pyrenees cross, about 9 months old. The other is a male Anatolian, about 14 weeks old. She says the female we've started tethering during the day in our secure sheep and goat paddock. It's a fence within a fence, no climb woven wire, and contains some yearling lambs, goats, kid goats, and some juvenile does. The tether is connected to a harness and covered in PVC so she can't get tangled up. At night, they put her in the tack room, and we're tethering her because she plays with the kid goats, and we're concerned she may accidentally kill or injure one. We're working on setting up a smaller bonding pen where she can stay full-time with the sheep, which she doesn't have an issue with off tether. In the meantime, is the tether method safe? Could this be effective? Is there a better method to fix her lack of bonding her with future charges, and what should we do differently with the 14-week-old pup? She says they live in a colder climate. Could he start living with the livestock now? And she says that she knows that Texas A&M uses a mix of sheep and goats in our bonding pens, which we do. But what is the ideal age gender of the bonding pen stock? She's not opposed to going out and getting some older animals, perhaps some rams and billies, if that would be safe, a safer, more effective setup. Other than attempting to play with the kid goats, which does seem largely initiated by the goats themselves, she has to, she's always been safe around all the other livestock, including free-range poultry. We haven't had any roaming issues with this female dog, and she is free-ranging on the property, it says. She frequently hunts wild rabbits, but sleeps peacefully in the tack room with our wool rabbits. So as I mentioned, yes, we believe that information on the Facebook page is incorrect. I talk with a lot of people that have followed that information, and then they have issues with their dogs wanting to stay at the house all the time. All I can tell you about that Facebook page, folks, is I've been banned from it because they don't agree with, regular methods that the majority of people out there that work with livestock guardian dogs recommend. Betty, your male pup is just at the end of that bonding window regarding brain development in the dogs, and that generally happens for bonding from about 5 weeks of age to about 14 weeks of age. And so, he really needs to be with livestock immediately for a bond to even hopefully form correctly. And it's not that the bond can't happen after that point, but that's the dog's, the window of their brain development is that period. And so if you try to bond them after that, that bond is never as strong as it would have been if they would have been with livestock from, 5 to 14 weeks of age full time. Okay. Your other dog, she may still guard livestock, but at 9 months of age, she's probably going to be more of a property guardian. At this point, if she's been in the house with you all the time, okay, she's going to be bonded to people. Yes, we usually use a mix of sheep and goats in our bonding pens so that the dogs get used to guarding multiple species, as an adult dog. What's worked out kind of the best for us, it seems like, because we've tried different ages, but it seems to work best starting out with some yearling livestock for puppies up to about 16 weeks of age. After that, the puppies start to get big, they start to get more agile, and they start to get more playful. And so then some older, more mature animals probably should be in your bonding pen, or you could start out that way too. It really kind of depends on what you have. But you need to have some of those more aggressive animals. Maybe not, billies or rams, but some mature nannies or ewes that are kind of on the cranky side, that are kind of overly protective of their lambs or kids. Those would be the good kind to put in a bonding pen with, a 4-month-old pup, for instance. They'll help you teach that puppy to be submissive. After that, once the pups get to be 6 months of age, they're obviously a little bit bigger at that point. And then that's when you would want to, either move them into a pen or pasture with some mature rams or billies, or put those mature rams or billies into their bonding pen. Again, they really work well, and we do have a picture or a video on our YouTube channel that kind of shows some of that happening. But getting kind of to your tether training, yes, I think tether training is very acceptable. We tether train all of our puppies basically for two reasons. One reason is because it never fails when you're working livestock. Your livestock guardian dog gets in the way. They're inquisitive. They want to know what's going on, and that's not the time or place for them to be doing that. So they need to be tied up or put in a kennel or in a trailer or something like that out of the way. And then the other reason we tether dogs is in case they ever encounter a snare out in the field, either on a neighbor's property or on one of your properties. It has saved some of the dogs in our bonding project before. When they've encountered a snare, they just lay down and wait to be released. They won't wait forever, but if you're using a GPS tracker and you notice your dog hasn't moved in an hour or two, and it's on a fence line, they may be snared. So for your particular situation, though, I probably wouldn't use the tether as much as you are. You probably need to move to something like a dangle stick or a drag instead, because this is an adolescent dog, and that puppy's going to be building up energy and is going to get frustrated from being tethered all the time. And so that's going to be counterintuitive to what you want. You want the dog to be calming down instead of getting more excited all the time when it gets released. And so the dangle stick will help keep them from running, and so will the drag. They kind of work a little differently, and it really kind of depends on how much brush you have in your pastures. And so, if you've got clear pastures, the drag is probably a better device. It works a little bit, better, and the dogs don't get this kind of funny alligator walk where they're, swinging their legs like this in kind of a circular motion. But that's what I would recommend. Probably move over to the dangle stick or the drag. And there's a fact sheet on our website on how to make each of those devices for you. So if you have any other questions, reach out or post them in the chat today. Next question we have is from Cindy Lou Larson. She says, what do you do when neighbors, she has 4 of them, want to take over your property from your livestock guardian dog? She said it's a serious legal question. The neighbor has 7 Akbosh plus a bunch of puppies, and they only have 3 goats. And she says they've got about 20 head of sheep and 3 Pyrenees. Basically, the neighbors continue to allow their dogs to come over the property with field fences, now reinforced with cattle panels between them. There's fence fights with the dogs, and she's had $3,000 in vet bills, I'm assuming, or maybe just fencing bills. She said, we went to the sheriff, but to no avail for them to talk to them. We do have 4 dangerous dog citations issued. You don't say whether that's against you or against the other people, but and she says that these Akbosh want to kill her Pyrenees. She needs some legal advice, not country farm advice, and are there any dog lawyers out there? Okay, well, first, Cindy, I don't know of any dog lawyers that are out there. There may be some lawyers that are out there that have experience in companion animal type of issues, but the chance of finding one that has anything to do with livestock guardian dog is going to be even slimmer. Trust me, we've tried to find lawyers that have, even ag lawyers that have experience with livestock guardian dogs, and we haven't found any yet. If anybody knows of somebody, please reach out to me with that name and contact information, because I'd love to be able to talk to them. One of the biggest problems is in these situations is that there's just no laws in states that specifically deal with livestock guardian dogs. And so, I would encourage you to take lots of photos, document every incident that happens in a very detailed logbook of date and time and who was there and exactly what happened each time. And then continue to contact your local animal control, informing them of the situation. You're going to have to go out, because a lot of times animal control, you would think they would know what their local laws are, but a lot of times they don't. And so it would be, in your benefit to look up all your local county and any state laws, that you can find that pertain to breeding dogs, for instance, in this situation, because that sounds like what may be going on with the neighbors next to you. Laws that pertain to dogs with livestock, nuisance laws, that kind of thing. Those might be able to help you deal with this issue that's going on. Another thing that's important, since it sounds like you have a little bit more of an active ranching situation going on, since you've got more sheep than they do, goats, is the whole right to farm law. That just passed on our last election here, and I would encourage you to look up the specifics of that law, and I'm fairly sure that will pertain to you, and you may be able to use some of that legal information in there. A lot of times there are specific laws that have exemptions for ag use that are out there that pertain to dogs, such as tethering, or this new, you can only have so many breeding dogs on your property before you have to have a license. So look those kind of things up. You may be able to get around some of these things because they have so many dogs. If those are female dogs and they're breeding those, you might be able to talk to a judge, and you may win this on the legal side. The biggest problem is going to be just neighbor relations, and that can be difficult. I've talked to a lot of people recently with similar issues, and there's never a good outcome in this situation. So I hope that information helps you. I wish there were some more specific things that I could provide to you, but again, there just aren't laws out there on the books that we've been able to find in any state. Okay, so our next question, Angel Birch, she says they have a 2-year-old intact male Great Pyrenees, who they've had since September. He's adjusted to their place well until about 2 weeks ago. They had him home with their male goats, since he was with goats at his previous farm. 2 weeks ago he started breaking out of the fence. He broke through the fence to the pen with some of their nannies, and then they had a spayed female in that pen, and they were breaking out of the barn to roam the property. And she says, you name it, we tried everything, including a tether. And so we finally decided he was bored and wanted to patrol, so we started training him until this past Monday. Behind us, the acreage, not farm, no animals, she says. They found a stray female who looked like a Great Pyrenees. She seems to be about a year old. They found her in the back pasture, and the neighbors decided to make her theirs. However, they still allow her to roam on Angel's property, it sounds like here. And it says, and they've lured their male dog off into unknown areas before. It says this weekend we tried to hotwire the immediate 5 acres around the house to keep this female dog out and their male in. However, now it feels like it defeats the purpose of having him, because he can't patrol or be trained to patrol their entire property. Okay, so are we in danger of breaking his spirit, or him getting bored and breaking through the hot wire anyway? How do we combat the issue our irresponsible neighbors have caused by taking in a stray that barely trusts them but walks right up to us and wants attention? Well, that's... So first, what I would say, Angel, is, the old saying of good fences make good neighbors, really applies here. And, I would encourage, I understand that fencing is not cheap. Believe me, we're trying to fence our own property that we own right now. And, but you need to have your property fence if you're going to use a livestock guardian dog. You can't just have open property and allow your dog, free roam. And at some point, obviously you're going to have livestock, and so you're going to need the fencing to keep your livestock in. So I don't think, you're going to break his spirit or anything, but I would encourage you to get him fixed. He's 2 years old. There's no reason to have an intact dog at that age. We spay or neuter all of our dogs by 11 months of age, and we haven't seen any issues arise from doing that. Okay. On top of that, it's going to take 30 to 60 days for his hormones to kind of even out and normalize after you get him fixed. Okay, and so I would strongly encourage you to do that. There's way too many livestock guardian dogs and rescues as it is, and so leave breeding up to people that know what they're doing with livestock guardian dogs to do breeding. So. And also there's research out there. There's been quite a few different research articles that have showed no difference in intact versus fixed dogs or males versus females in guarding ability. So get him fixed. That keeps the issue of puppies being out of the way. He won't want to be roaming in case that female dog is not fixed and comes into heat. But I would get that done immediately. Okay, the other thing that I would do is what I'm assuming didn't happen in the last question that I talked about, is going over and having a very calm conversation. I can't stress calm conversation enough with your neighbor about the situation, and explain why you need a livestock guardian dog and how the dogs work. Okay, and recommend to them that they also get this female fixed if they're going to adopt her and keep her in the area. And that'll help roaming of both dogs to not happen. Okay. I also suggest that you recommend to them that if they're not going to fence in their property, that maybe they get an invisible fence system for their dog if it's not going to be guarding livestock. That might help keep that dog away from yours. And again, I'd encourage you to have a good, strong hot wire. Since you don't have woven wire and it sounds like you're just putting up hot wire, you're going to have to put up quite a few strands to keep your guard dog in, because you're basically going to need it from, a few inches off the ground all the way up to 4 feet. So I'm not sure if you're using like the woven netting from Premier Livestock or if you're just using individual strands. I'd encourage you to use the netting, although I know it is quite a bit more expensive because I've looked at that myself. The other thing is, just as I recommended to the other lady a minute ago, document everything, and a detailed logbook with as many photos of every time that female dog comes over to your place. And again, go out and research county laws, any of your state laws that talk about using dogs to guard livestock, or exemptions of dogs that are being used for livestock or anything like that. There's very few of them out there. The only things we've usually been able to find is some things, I think it was either in North or South Carolina, about ranchers being required to have dog houses for their livestock guardian dogs, which everybody I'm sure that's watching knows that's a ridiculous thing, because they're not going to use them. But that's what I would recommend for you, and so I hope that helps, Angel. Next question up today is from Jack Harmon. He has a female Great Pyrenees. He's had a litter of pups parked under a brush pile of the logging treetops. He says he's been letting them be and letting her nurse them until they come out one day on their own, maybe at a month or 5 weeks old. Am I doing anything wrong here? She comes out to eat when I feed every day and gets extra food the other dogs don't get. She and 4 other dogs are assigned to 150 goats on a track I own about a mile from my house, so the other dogs are guarding. Well, Jack, the biggest thing I would say is, by leaving the pups in there, if you can't see them and handle them, you don't know if those pups are getting enough nutrition from that female. One of those pups may not be getting enough milk from her. The weather's getting cooler at this point. They may not be staying warm. And so, if you're planning on selling these pups, you could lose some of them very easy at this point, because they're not very old, and they definitely need some extra care at this point. So, if they were my pups, I would say it's best to bring the female and those pups into a barn someplace, or the garage of your house, someplace where you can keep her contained where she can't escape. And so that you can, observe those pups, make sure they're getting cared for, and so I'd get them out from underneath the brush pile. Okay. I would encourage you to get her fixed before you have another litter, because it doesn't sound like you want to be probably in the breeding business, because it does take a female away from doing the work that she needs to do. And then, unless you're sure, of the male that bred her, you can get crossbred pups, and sometimes they may or may not look like a border collie, but at some point they're definitely going to act like that, and then you can have some issues, or somebody else that you sold the dogs to or gave them can have issues with prey drive being in the livestock guardian dog. Okay, so that would be my recommendation. Also, in general, dogs that are fixed live longer, which in turn is basically more profitable for you because you don't have to replace dogs as soon. And also, there's not all the puppy shot costs and the extra dog food that you're going through right now because you have a litter. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, bring them in, and that way you can kind of keep an eye on them. And they need to be socialized too. The sooner that you can start socializing, the less work that it is, because you don't have to spend as much time with them when they really start that bonding phase, and they're coming into that phase right now, as I mentioned earlier today. 5 weeks of age is when that window starts to open up, and those pups need to be with livestock, probably closer than they are just being underneath a brush pile. Our next question today, and I appreciate all the questions this month, folks, is from Susan Brandenberger. They have property in North Gillespie County, and they recently purchased 40 Spanish Cross nannies and a couple billies for some brush control. They bought 2 5-year-old Anatolians that are neutered siblings from somebody in Oklahoma that was getting out of the goat business. They were never around deer. We currently have goats and dogs in a 15-acre trap by the house, and told our hunters we would not turn them into the bigger pasture until after the big hunting Thanksgiving weekend. When we have seen deer come near the trap, the dogs bark and run at the fence, but that's hard to catch. Other than that, they've been wonderful and behaved and easy to live with. So her main question is will they adjust to the deer eventually? And so, Susan, this is just, we haven't done any research on this, and we are looking at doing a bonding project where we acclimate the dogs to deer. Because I get this question a lot. But this is just kind of based on anecdotal evidence from me doing producer interviews and going out and visiting with producers. And so, at this age, they're 5 years old already. I think it's going to take a while for them to acclimate to the deer. And I'm not sure if they will at this age because, if they haven't seen deer before, they may always see them as a threat. And then that's normally the issue with younger guard dogs, is that they don't know what is a threat to their charges and what isn't a threat. And so, when you place a young dog out there, they eventually kind of figure out as they're maturing that, hey, these deer or these turkeys that come by, they don't bother my animals, so I'm just going to kind of leave them alone. And that's what I hear from producers, is that younger dogs are usually an issue, but once those dogs mature, those ranchers see more fawns on the property because the dogs have pushed the coyotes out, and so there's really nothing left then to prey on the deer. And so you end up having an increase in your deer population on your ranch because the dogs have set up a territory and they're maintaining that territory. If you're going to keep them in this small area for a while still, maybe until the end of hunting season, you could definitely try a shock collar because these dogs are old enough for that. And if you see them, start to chase deer, I would definitely try to discourage that with, some loud yelling, and then, maybe some stimulation on the collar. A fairly decent collar that we use is from Inverox. You can get them on Amazon. Like a single collar, I think, is $60, and I think a pair of them you can get a little bit better deal, I think, is like $80. But I use the Inverox collars on my own dogs, and they work pretty well when I'm training my border collies too. So anyway, I know you don't have time to sit around the dogs all the time, but that might be something that helps you out. But I don't know that at 5 years old they're going to probably ever get used to the deer. Next up, we have a question from Jeannie Cornelius. She has a 4-month-old male Akbosh. He's tethered in a pen with 4 or 5 ewes for about a month, then kept untethered in the same pen with sheep for a good while, and eventually put in a bigger herd, about 120 ewes, along with an older proven spayed female. He says he did great for a while. At about 9 to 10 months old, he chewed up a ewe's front leg. She survived, but we had to put her with another herd. Lambing started. The proven LGD stays close to the newborn lamb, so all went well until the pup chewed the tail off of a 3 to 4 week old lamb. We again put the pup back in a small pen with a few head of sheep. A lamb from the adjacent pasture managed to get in there somehow, and the mother was just on the other side of the fence. The pup killed that lamb. And let's see, we removed the pup from that ranch, and he's now at our home place, tethered and contained with rams around. We went ahead and had him neutered at 11 months of age. My questions are: is there any hope for him maturing and becoming a reliable LGD after killing and getting a taste of lamb, or is he certainly doomed? Also, was it our mistake to allow the younger dog access to lambs? Could we have done something different that would have made a difference? And so I guess first, Jeannie, a lot of the things that you did, moving the dog to a different pen and putting him back into a bonding pen, moving him home, putting him with the rams, those are all good things that you did, and those are all things that I've recommended a bunch of times in these Q&As to people. So, those things were good that you did. But your question of, could you have done something different? I would say yes on that. If you can't closely supervise a teenage dog, and he's definitely at 9 to 10 months of age, he's just starting out adolescence, and he's going to be in that adolescent phase until at least 18 months, maybe even as long as 24 months of age. And so, during that time, if you can't closely supervise a dog, it's probably best to leave them in pastures with, some dry ewes, or put them in pastures with your rams or your billies, and let him guard those livestock, because those animals won't tolerate, a dog chasing or chewing on them. The question about, is he doomed because he got the taste of lamb? I would say no. Okay. I don't think, just because your guard dog has killed a lamb once, it doesn't mean that they're going to go and do that again. Okay. So the biggest thing is that you go through and, give that dog some correction, which it sounds like you're doing. Okay. And then, leave him with those mature rams, and I would probably leave him there for quite some time. And, probably leave them in there until you're definitely done with lambing, and until those lambs are, old enough to be able to run and get away from him. So probably maybe, 8 weeks of age or so on your lambs. You just have to expect a lot of rough play with livestock guardian dogs during those teenage months. It happens with all of them, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to, end up being a good dog when they fully mature. I like to use some of our dogs as examples sometimes, and for those of you that have been on the Facebook page for a while now, you might remember Thor. Thor was a pair bonded dog without hot wire. Thor and his brother started roaming literally the day we let him out of the bonding pens. Okay, and we dealt with him when he was there at the center. He moved out to a ranch. I moved him to another one of our research ranches. He finally made his way all the way back to the center again. By this point, Thor had, kind of just graduated out of the bonding project at 18 months of age, and I figured, well, this is the first dog in this round. He's gonna flunk out of this deal. We're gonna have to rehome him. And we put him with some yearling nannies, and it was just kind of like somebody flipped a switch one day. Those nannies started to kid, and he stopped roaming, and he stayed with his animals, and he's one of our best dogs now. Thor does a good job for us. He will patrol outside of his pastures, but he doesn't roam the countryside like he was doing as a younger pup. So give him some of those extra discipline that they need, and let them off the tether is a big thing. Again, I mentioned this earlier, it only creates pent-up energy in them, and it's going to show once you release them, and that's usually in chasing. Okay, and chasing leads to biting, and biting leads to chewing. Okay, so I go back again, even if he's going to be with the Rams, put a drag on him or put a dangle stick on him to help stop that chasing. What else do I have here? The other thing, make sure you use a game camera. Game cameras are really, great devices to use in a bonding pen or, in a pen if you've got a dog that you're having some issues with. The cellular ones are really nice. They're a lot more popular than they used to be, and they're a lot cheaper now. You can look at pictures, right on your phone, so you don't even have to go out there and change the card and then try to look at what's going on. You can see things as they're happening throughout the day, and then go out and make some, needed discipline correction of your dog. So the other thing, he's going to be 11, 12 months of age pretty quick here. I would go ahead and get him fixed, and that'll kind of decrease some of that aggression that's going to happen in that pup coming up pretty quick here. So I don't see any questions here today. Hopefully this video ended up getting posted. Like I said, I did have some technical difficulties at the beginning. I do want to thank again the Sheep and Goat Predator Management Board for providing funding for our program here. And our next Q&A session, it's going to be one day off in January. I've got to go and check on some pups that first week. So our next Q&A will be Friday, January 5th at 3 p.m. So I hope everybody has a good Christmas, and we'll see you all after the new year. Thanks again for watching.